Hi guys, I'm here with my newest addition to my wheel collection, a second Sherman. Now this was gifted to me, i.e. free, by Andy, a local rider. Now I met Andy for the first time 2 weeks ago, I think, at a group ride, his very first group ride. First time he rode with other guys. Had a beautiful ride up to Mount Baldy. I think he loved it. Well, a few days ago, he had an accident on this. He tells me that he was going about, he thinks he was going about 30 miles an hour downhill on a paved street, and he hit a bump. And apparently he just basically, which can happen if you hit something going fast and it blindsides you, you're not aware of it, he basically popped off the wheel. Landed on his back, which I think is probably the best way to land from personal experience. Slid quite a bit. I guess in his mind he almost felt like he had stopped sliding, but no, his foot caught and then he rolled. Miraculously, he only injured his finger, bloodied that pretty bad, his ankle, and he racked his back. When I met up with him later in that day, he was like this, kind of hurting. But I think he's going to be fine. Just a little bit traumatized. Now, look, guys. If any of you are married, like I am, I'm sure you realize that your wife does worry about you when you go out riding. I know mine does. And that's certainly the case with Andy. And I think to make peace in the family, he assured her that this wheel was going to be out of the house and that he would not be riding any high-performance wheels. He still has a 9-bot, and he's getting a M10-3 from E-Wheels. So he's not out of the game. He's just out of the high-performance wheel game for a little while. And then he tells me he's probably going to buy. He's actually hoping that Veteran comes out with a suspension version of wheel. I think he's going to wait for a high-performance suspension wheel before he hops back in. He didn't want to sell the wheel, so he offered it for free, and I took him up on the offer. So if you're watching this, Andy, thanks again, and I hope to get some good use out of this wheel. I'm going to use it as a spare for my Sherman, which is kind of a relief because it kind of makes me nervous if something were to happen to my Sherman and not to have a Sherman to ride. Not good. And I'll probably use it as a loaner for people visiting out of town that want to go for a ride. I'll have a nice wheel that I can loan them. So I think even though the wheel looks like it's pretty good condition, the front is undamaged, the sides are undamaged. I think what happened was when he popped off the wheel, it continued bouncing like this some amount of times, probably hitting the wheel, scraped just ever so a little bit here. Trolley handle popped off, got ripped off, and one massive hit on the back. Quite a bit of damage on the roll cage. Obviously, this will have to be replaced, and the light. And this actually highlights maybe a weakness in the placement of these charge ports in relation to this roll cage. So a massive hit like this, it pushed these. It just destroyed these charge ports, pushed them into the shell, and damaged this part of the shell. During the trauma of this occurring, this popped out and it got pushed back in. So this clip on the side panel, plastic generally doesn't bounce back, so it's probably ruined. This side you can see how it the action pushing into the shell looks like it broke this screw free, and I think you can see the blue battery pack underneath. But this highlights the usefulness of the roll cage, since it took all the abuse. I think if this wasn't here, the shell would have been damaged much more, and more likely the battery pack inside would have been damaged. The sides look beautiful. The other side is the same way. Not a scratch anywhere. Pedals, everything's straight, except for the broken tab. A couple damaged tabs. These side pads are probably reusable. Pads and pedals, everything. The front looks absolutely beautiful. Just a few little tiny divots here with mostly just scratches. So I think this just probably just kissed the pavement. And of course the trolley handle, I think will be needing replacement. Interestingly, he had his mudguard installed on the wheel, and I see absolutely no damage. I had removed it, so that's cool. This, I guess, is tougher than I thought it would be in a crash. That's why I didn't originally buy one. So now I have a mudguard for mine. Andy tells me that he rode the Sherman home about 10 miles with no problems. When I brought it home, I rode it around for a little bit, and it rides great. Ignoring the cosmetic issues, nothing seems wrong with it. So what I'm going to be doing with this video, by the way, is I wanted to show you one potential outcome of a crash, and then I want to show you how I'm going to rebuild it, the parts I'm going to buy, and just go through the process. Might be interesting in case you have something like this in your future. So there was some odd behavior though with this, so I'm concerned that the control board might be damaged. Let me show you that behavior now. I'm going to turn the wheel on and then turn on the lights. Now the flashers work great. But the lights flash, which is obviously not normal. And this icon that represents the battery cell just flashes on and off once every 5 seconds or so. Now I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that at least one of these charge ports was damaged, potentially shorted by the roll cage smashing into it. And I'm hoping that the control board has detected that and is giving the user some clue with that diagnostic beeping. So when I open up the wheel, I'm going to disconnect the charge ports and from the control board, turn it back on, and see if the problem goes away. And if it doesn't, well, then the only thing can be the control board is damaged. Okay, it took quite a bit of work with this paint scraper to get this to pop off. And it kind of feels like they're using some kind of maybe adhesive on this, which wasn't on my other Sherman. So now I need to kind of squish these bits so I can take this off. Well, looks like a new control board time. The smashed in charge port pressed up against this transformer broke it. Fortunately, it's not a component that's critical to the balancing of the wheel. Probably, I would guess it's involved with the charging components. That's why the battery indicator was flashing. Unfortunately, this Sherman and the control board is fitted so tightly together that any stresses that occur in the shell on this wheel tend to get transmitted right into the control board. And even though it might run, there could be serious problems that another severe jolt could spell doom. It's interesting. I see this broken wire. I don't know what that's from. All right, time to disconnect the batteries and take this thing totally apart. After inspecting everything, I have determined that it's going to need a lot of parts. Now, if I'm on a really tight budget, I could probably make do without changing the shell or the side panels, as long as I could be okay with some cosmetic damage oddities. This section is broken, it's caved in, kind of twisted. Plastic, it has stress marks all over the place. These two charge ports connectors would have to be replaced. It could be done, but I'm going to opt to just buy new shell. Probably have to buy a pair of the side panels. One of the side panels is okay, but I'll just get new side panels. New trolley handle. At least half the roll cage. I'll probably, I don't know, have to buy the whole one maybe. The brake light, and of course a new control board. So I will order that all up from eWheels and see how long that takes to get. If I'm lucky, maybe if they haven't stocked, maybe in a week or so, I'll have everything. And I'll get back to you with all the parts, and I can start putting this guy back together. All right, it's been a few weeks, and I have all the parts to put the Sherman back together. I ordered everything from eWheels, and they have a very comprehensive parts system for the Sherman. You can get just about everything. Maybe some screws and some brackets I didn't see listed on the website anyway. And I got everything within a few days, but I did have to wait a week and a half plus to get a control board. Probably, I think maybe a couple weeks by the time I got it shipped. Jason had a back order of control boards coming in. But I have everything now, and this cost me $650. A complete shell, so that's the 2 inner shells and the 2 outside panels. One of those panels I probably didn't need to buy because it was just scratched, but I thought if mostly I'm buying a brand new shell, I'll just buy an extra panel too. New roll cage, half of the roll cage, the light, complete trolley handle. But these plugs were destroyed on the other Sherman, and I didn't realize that you don't need to buy these if you're buying the inner shell, because they come pre-installed from the factory. So let me know if you need some extra power plugs. And the control board. And that's it. So it's a bit pricey, but considering the base Sherman didn't cost me anything, I guess it's a fair deal. Now you're going to see that the shell is not black. Well, I painted it. Maybe my favorite color for EUCs when I paint the wheels. I painted my 18XL red, my M10-3 red, and the Veteran now is going to be red. Every time I show a wheel that I've painted, I get asked questions about, how did you do it and so forth. Just want to quickly point out that what I use on all the wheels I've ever painted, I use Rust-Oleum 2X Ultra Cover. For me, I buy this at Home Depot. It's maybe $4 a can, I guess. I'm using the red I've been using is Apple Red and gloss. And all I do is just clean the shell, just clean it really well, and then I mask where needed, and I apply 2 coats. I'll spray 1 coat on, wait about 45 minutes, and then spray the next coat, and that's it. And a couple days later, it's hardened up nicely, and it wears really well. Now begins the rebuild process, and I'm not going to show you absolutely everything I'm going to do, but I'll show you the highlights. And I'm going to begin by continuing the teardown of the old Sherman. I had already removed the batteries soon after I opened up the wheel just to keep them safe, and I had to disconnect the cabling from the control board to do it because they'd kind of weaved these wires in between the battery wires. Not the best assembly technique for easier maintenance. So all I need to do now is remove these 6 bolts, and then there's a screw here, and a screw here. Do the same on the other side, and then I can split the shell. Now I should say before I can split the shell, you do have to remove these 4 screws that attach the control board to the wheel. And I might as well take off the trolley handle while I'm here. I really wish all these manufacturers would just use, would avoid Phillips screws, wood screws everywhere. They've made progress by using them, at least on the side panels, but why don't they use them everywhere? That much more expensive just to add some brass inserts with, so they can use machine screws. I mean, you're only paying $3,000+ for a wheel, right? Hopefully everything comes off now. Okay, I forgot I need to disconnect the cable from this light socket and the light socket up here too. Everything is disconnected from the control board now, and I think I got all the screws loosened. That's that. We'll take a closer look at how I need to rebuild the control board. I'm transferring the battery bumpers from the old shell to the new shell. I need to replace the double-sided tape that helps to secure the batteries. And for that, I'm using the Scotch brand permanent mounting tape. It's kind of a soft, foamy foam tape, about 1/16 of an inch thick. I think I bought this at Home Depot. And put a strip here. going to attach this side of the shell. This is the side without that the motor wires do not come through. I'm going to loosely put this side on, but I can't secure it until I actually install the control board. Looks like everything is going to fit. Here is my least favorite part of this whole job. This is a broken control board with the transformer, broken transformer and mashed in capacitor. New control board. Now on all the other control boards I've ever installed on Gotway wheels, they come with a self-contained, they're mounted to the heat sink and everything. Here they give you just the board. So what I just kind of, I don't know, I just don't like about that is the fact that you have to screw down all the MOSFETs, making sure that you don't apply any undue stress on the MOSFETs. You have to apply some goop on the screws and put this on. It just seems a little bit more finicky work than I would prefer, and I can imagine other people might be intimidated by this process. And then you get a bag of screws and fuses, and they're putting these 30 amp fuses, suggesting that we use 30 amp fuses on the battery instead of the 50 amp. I'm going to just leave it at 50 amp. All right, wish me luck. Going to have to remove 12 screws through the MOSFETs. And it looks like 1, 2, 3 screws that also secure the control board to the heatsink. Don't lose these little nylon spacers. Though I think, yeah, they do give you, they do give them to you here, but I'm just going to reuse the existing ones. Okay, I'm taking the new heat transfer pad, lining it up. And I'm using the new ones they gave, but clearly they have cut silicone on them, so they're just repurposing these screws from an old control board. This is definitely the most finicky part of this whole process. Part of the problem with this process is, well, probably doesn't apply to many people, but some people, and I know one person in particular, likes to carry a control board with him when he goes into remote areas. This is not the kind of field repair that's very practical. Most control boards, you can slap them in with just 4 screws and you're done. I couldn't imagine doing this on a trail. I suppose it's possible. Is this a heat sink that expensive that they couldn't just send you everything already assembled? Now this last part is interesting. This is the transformer with a broken out of the board. And I don't know, maybe that's a common failure mechanism on the Sherman, because now it's a kind of a standalone little board and there's a connector here. So in the future, assuming eWheels sells that component, which I think this is associated with charging, because it was broken on the Sherman I'm fixing right now, but the Sherman still was rideable. It was only the error that I was getting had to do with the battery power system. And yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do here. I don't want to, just at this point, I don't want to drill into this aluminum, because that drilling creates metal particles, which I'd rather not create right now. If I were to do this the right way, I would probably mark a location for the hole, take everything apart, drill it separately from the electronics, clean it up, and then reassemble it. But that's way too much work. I think I might put a little piece of wood under here, glue it in, just to give a little tiny support. I'm not convinced it needs anything, actually. eWheels did not provide any sealant for all these screws, and I really do think that's a good thing to do. I'm using this now. Fortunately, when I was working on the original Sherman, veteran sent me a kind of a repair kit, including this tube. So this is clearly what they use. So I'm going to just apply this. And I've decided I'm just going to leave this free floating. There's really no reason. I'm just not going to bother applying any pressure, more pressure on this guy. I don't think it's necessary. And that's that. Okay, now's the time to fit the board, which is a tight fit. And you have to split the shell to get it in here. Okay. Now the last tricky part is the black this vent it fell out. This is frustrating. All right, in. Woo. Okay, that's part one. Now it's just going to be a matter of connecting up the various cables. But there's one thing here which is just nuts on their part. They have got this cable. This is for the rear light that has to go right here, and they actually it's almost, well, it's possible, but there's places so much stress on this cable to be able to get it in here. I just don't like that. So I'm gonna split this cable, I'm gonna cut it, and I'm gonna splice in some wire to make this a longer cable, because I just don't see the point in having it having put undue stress on these wires. You're obviously not going to want to do this if you're not comfortable with simple wiring. Now I don't have one of those mini heat guns, so I'm just going to use a little lighter. Okay, I've tidied everything up with a little bit of electrical tape, and now this just slips into the connector with plenty of slack. Why couldn't they spec this cable just to be a few inches longer? Time to install the batteries. Instead of drilling holes in the shell and screwing this fuse down, I'm just going to use hot glue. And to keep these cables a little bit separated and away from the batteries, I'm just going to use these little cable organizers. And don't forget to put the heat shrink tubing over the motor wires when you reconnect them. And again, I'm just going to use a flame to shrink it. Okay, before I do the final cleanup, install all the batteries, I'm going to connect up one of the batteries and turn this on, see what happens. So again, when you connect these, do it very quickly, not slowly. No spark. And it's on. All right, I can connect all the batteries and button this guy up. I've tested the basic functionality of the wheel. Everything looks like it's working. So the last step I'm going to do, which I have to do, is secure the heatsink to the shell, and they do not have pre-drilled holes. So you have to do that yourself. I'll vacuum up this plastic in a minute, the plastic shavings, but I actually think this is probably maybe not even necessary, because the way this heatsink is wedged in the shell, I can't imagine it moving at all. Which is good in terms of securing the control board, but it can be bad, because if you're in a crash or some kind of a bad fall, all the stresses that go to the shell get transmitted right into the control board. Okay, before I put the top on, the very last thing I'm going to do is apply some more of this goop to the Hall sensor cable, and I'm not going to apply it to any other cables, because all of those can come off and wouldn't cause an issue. It's only the Hall sensor cable which could cause you to crash if it were to pop off. Well, it is complete. And it runs too. I took it for a little ride down the street. It's dark, so I'll give it a proper test tomorrow. But it's beautiful. I really like the red, and the red with the black accents. I just think it's a classic color combination with the pedals, the side pads. It was a success. Thanks again, Andy, for giving me this wheel, and for E-Wheels with supplying me the parts. I did buy them though, but it's nice that they have a well stocked supply of all the extras. There is one little bit that's not working, and that's the headlamp and something on the display. And this goes back to when I originally got this wheel from Andy. When I would turn on the light, it would just be flashing. And then there was something a little funky with the battery indicator too. And those are still there, except it's not flashing anymore, but sometimes it turns on, sometimes it doesn't turn on. And when it's on, it'll turn off, sometimes after a minute, sometimes after 2 seconds. I did install the light from my other Sherman, and same behavior. So it's not the light. And the battery indicator, the outline of the battery, that briefly turns off, like cyclic, every 5 to 10 seconds, something like that. It'll just go like that, turn on and off, turn off and back on. I feel the wheel is safe though. I don't think that's safety concern, because you can literally you can turn the wheel on and then disconnect this panel and ride the wheel. And anything weird that happens with these switches essentially is ignored by the firmware when the wheel is in motion. So I'm going to reach out to veterans, see what they think. So I might end up buying a new panel. You probably can't see it, but right here, there was some original damage. Got hit right here, it looks like, and the plastic was distorted, but I didn't think it was bad enough to buy a new panel. So I think the electronics probably got whacked, jarred, and it probably messed up something. That's my guess. And the wheel's not totally complete. I have ordered from Daniel some of the leather mono customized pads. Except for these, they're going to have a red center section with diamond cross stitching. So I think that should look cool. And then I'm waiting for some spike pedal inserts from Chris. And Chris tells me that he's still offering these for $100 introductory price. That includes shipping. But listening to him, it doesn't sound like that's going to be available much longer. So if you have been thinking about getting spiked pedals for the Sherman, now might be the time, from Chris. I'll put a link up here to the video I did that talks all about these. So I'm going to get those, and then I have a custom seat that I'm working on with collaboration from Dan, a local writer. And always experimenting with Sherman seats. The Sherman must be the seat king wheel in terms of the variety of seats that people are making for these. So, but those will all be in a future video. For now, I'm going to enjoy this wheel, and I think I'm calling this my date night wheel. I'm not going to be probably taking this too much on the trails. I'll try and keep this pretty, and for all the gnarly riding, I'll use my other Sherman. All right, guys. Well, I hope you found this interesting. And as I leave, I will show you this in motion out in the sunlight, so you can appreciate the new paint job. All right, guys. See you later. Well, I'm back. It's the next day. So when I ended that last segment, I discovered a little bit more of a problem. When I went to attempt to charge the wheel, it wouldn't charge. And remember, I told you about this flashing battery indicator, which I'm going to show you that in a second. That must have been associated with the ability of the wheel not to charge. So that was frustrating, and thought maybe it was battery problems. So I disconnected one battery, tried just with the other battery, no difference. I switched to the other battery, no difference. Just could not find out what the problem is until I looked a little bit closer, and totally stupid mistake on my part. So let me show you what's going on. Okay, look here. You can see this outline flashing periodically. And I'm going to explain, show you what's causing that in a second. Let me turn off the wheel and open this up. Okay, as I was poking around in here, double checking everything, disconnecting the battery cables and so forth, I was double checking the connections to the control board with these wires. There's one of these from each battery pack. These are the BMS communication wires. Just one wire allows the control board to talk to the BMSs. And I was just double checking that they're both connected properly in the control board, and they were. And then so I'm looking here, and then it just occurs to me, hey, this electrical tape is on this one. And then I remembered when I received this wheel from Annie, and it had the problems, this wire had been sliced in half from the brute force of the impact that had destroyed the back charging ports. Sliced in half. You can see all I did was I taped them together in anticipation of soldering them together later, and of course I never did that, and for some reason I just didn't notice the electrical tape to remind me. So that's it. I'm sure I'm going to solder those together right now, and I'm sure it's going to work. So any of you veteran guys, if you ever see that your battery indicator flashing, I guess that's an indication that there's a BMS issue, whether it's here or maybe a issue in the actual BMS. All right, I finally have a fully functioning Sherman in all ways. So No longer any funny business with the LCD panel in terms of the flashing. I can charge it. And I even discovered what's wrong with the headlamp, which works great now. It's just this connector. If I fully insert the cable, it's flaky, but if I just pull it out a little bit, it's good. So I think I'm just going to leave it. It should work fine. If I need to, I can just I'm going to take off all the cables off these shelves before I throw it away. So in the future, I potentially could just switch out the cable. So that's cool. So I'm going to go out and do some writing, and yeah, I'll be enjoying this wheel. So now I will show you this in the wind and see what you think about the color.